Hey there, everyone. I'm Julie Galano, and welcome to GME Compass. And welcome back to another one of our Let's Talk series. Today, we are extremely excited to welcome Cynthia Gomez as one of our guest presenters with us for today's series.
Hi, Julie. Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here to have a conversation about what GME is.
Our primary topic today is what keeps program coordinators up at night.
Correct. As a coordinator, we just carry such a heavy load. And being a coordinator is not for everyone. You need to have some broad shoulders because you're carrying everything, right? But having something just blow up in the program and you understanding that could have been avoided. I've been saying this all these months and no one listened. That falls back on us as the coordinator because as a coordinator, we will always ask ourselves, or we should be asking ourselves, what could I have done better? What could I have done different? Right? Those are the middle of the night panics that I sometimes get. Another
Fire
thing
what if?
is,
Like, what? Right?
right. Another thing is when I was a new coordinator is what am I missing? Because there's just so much that, especially the newer coordinators, that they just don't know. So in my last role, I created checklists for all my coordinators because I know that that's what helped me to be able to see a list of everything that was required. And the ACDME is great. They provide checklists, right? And just check it off. And I'm supposed to have this instead because that fear, let's say a site visit is coming up. And I've mentored a lot of coordinators. I don't know if I have everything. Well, did you follow the list they gave you? Yes. Then it's okay. Relax. You have everything.
Mhm.
It's and it always comes back to us. I think those middle of the night panics is what could I do? What can I do better? The worst one is your program director, leaves or your program director passes away. I've heard of that
Mhm.
happening. Now there's a leadership turnover, whether it's program director or a DIO or a CEO, something. Now you're like, okay, what's going to happen to me? Let's say PD leaves. What's going to happen to me? What am I going to do? Who is the new person going to be? You're going to stay there because you know all the information about that program. So I know that for me, those were the panics that I had, but it always had to do with what can I do? Understanding there's some things that I can control, but there's many other things that I can't control. I cannot control that the program director left. I can only control the fact that I ensure that everything is up to par when that new program director comes in.
That's a great point though, because I can think of tons of huge things that happened with residents overly. I've had a resident that wasn't even on an elect. She was visiting family in Nigeria and didn't realize that her passport expired while she was in
Ooh.
Nigeria and
Wow.
couldn't get home.
Hmm.
Guess who got a fast and quick lesson on sending documentation to the embassy? Put that on a list of things I never thought I would say I've done, right?
Right, right,
Like,
right.
but or, we've had HR issues or things that have had those aren't the things that keep me up at night, not because I don't care, but those are the things that, like, they're the big things that you've done whatever you could do, you're learning, you have
Hmm.
legal that's advising you, you have HR.
Hmm.
It's the little things, like how I had said the example of having only the block schedule 6 months at a time of, like,
Hmm.
what am I missing? What
Right. What am I
piece
missing?
of
Hmm.
that intricate academic year what little thing did I miss when you're not, like, necessarily living on the checklist? Or like you said, if there's a meeting or a communication breakdown that happened, it's not the, like, they should have done this or they should have done this. It's
Right,
how
right.
could I have said that differently?
Yes,
How could
yes.
I have presented that
Hmm.
differently? What am I doing that just isn't, even for the block schedule example, I would stay up like, what is it that I'm not framing for it to click? Why this is so important? It wasn't like the anger around it or the frustration. It was the, what am I missing that I'm not framing this correctly? How important this is. Those were the things that would keep my wheels turning.
And that's a good point, Julie, because the ACDME has come a long way and they
Mhm.
recognize the program coordinators and managers as part of the leadership team. I love that. They can
Mhm.
go a step further. We'll give them some time. But as a leader, if you look at yourself as a leader in this program, a true leader will always ask what they can do different. Not point fingers of, well, you didn't do that. Is there a time for acknowledging when there were shortcomings from others? Yes, but that time should be a few far between, but a true leader will always look inwardly and ask themselves, what could I have done better? What did I say? What could I say different? What can I do the next time to avoid this? For every single nightmare panic mode, there should be a process in place. Let's avoid this from happening again. We are a
Yeah.
reactive society. Things that are in place today is because we're reacting to something bad, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's in GME as well. Something
Yep.
blew up. Let's avoid this from happening again.
Yes.
Hmm.
So what parts of the role to exactly that, as and we've kind of alluded to this very much so, but that you feel like is the most mentally exhausting, even if it might look superficial, it might not look very complicated on paper, but the things that are just heavy and exhausting.
Mentally exhausting, sometimes physically exhausting, spiritually, all the exhausting, right? It's the keeper of everything.
Mhm.
Being that person, being responsible. We were talking earlier that GME is not for everyone. We have some broad shoulders to carry all the responsibilities. Our program directors, they have responsibilities. Our DIOs have responsibilities. But program coordinators and managers are responsible to administrate. They are the administrators of the program. So they need to have eyes and hands on everything. That's a role that can be mentally exhausting. But we also mentioned the same thing. This next point is the fear of missing something. Is that fear, especially when a site visit is coming up, that fear of something, I'm going to miss something, I'm going to miss something. Surrounding yourself with people that you can pick up the phone and say, hey, I have this coming up. This is what I prepared. What do you think? 15-minute conversation. That's why I am such a huge advocate of mentorship. I started a mentorship in one of the facilities that I was in. I mentor program directors just because I love GME. I love educating on GME and I love to support those in GME. So
Yeah.
just finding someone to pick up the phone and say, okay, the site visit is coming up. What am I missing? Look through the checklist. A very short conversation, or my program director wants me to do this. This is how I'm thinking of doing it. What do you think? Simple conversation is just that extra person, that extra set of ears that is able to help you thinking it all. You know, another point that I have that can be mentally exhausting with us, PCs and PMs being the keepers of everything, is knowing what's urgent, what's important, what can be delegated, and what doesn't need to happen. I gave a bunch
Yeah.
of coordinators a training on the Eisenhower matrix. I use that myself. Okay, I have all the stuff. Everyone's pulling at me. Okay, what do I need to do now? What can I give someone else to do? What don't I need to do? And what do I have to, which item on this list can I plan to do later? And plan it.
Love, I actually have to write that down. I love that you brought up the Eisenhower matrix because 'cause you're
Yes.
taking me back to my master's program, right? But
Yes.
in a good
Hmm.
way
Hmm.
of learning how to really prioritize and break that
Exactly.
down in
Hmm.
operational 5 because when you have that stress and overwhelm and your chest is tight and you just want to, like, bark,
Hmm.
scream, cry, or all 3, it allows you to look at it from a non-emotional, factual way
Exactly.
to figure
Exactly.
that out.
To figure
Um,
it out. For
that's
example,
an amazing idea.
yeah, right now everyone's onboarding. In a couple of weeks, it's going to be orientation. Then you have, July 1, from July 1 to the end of July, everyone's on rotations and all the kinks and all the bumps, they always happen in July. But
Mhm,
in July, you're setting up for recruitment season in the fall. That's
mhm.
a lot of then you have the CCCs and the PECs. And for new programs, for the newer coordinators with brand new programs, and maybe they haven't done this before, it's overwhelming. So having a system like the Eisenhower matrix can help you organize your thoughts as to what can be done now and what needs to be done now and what can be done later. For example, you're a new program and your graduation doesn't occur for 2 years. Okay, you can start the conversation about graduation, but that doesn't take over everything else. That's just a bullet point in your meetings. Hey, what's the venue? Hey, what's the date? Let's start with the date. Then what's the venue? Then what are we going to do? But right now, we have to prepare for orientation in a couple of weeks. Do we have speakers? Do we have everything that we need to do? And that has helped a lot of people that I've presented the Eisenhower Matrix to really get their thoughts together. Because when I started off as a coordinator, I thought everything had to be done now.
Mhm.
I didn't have someone to say, no, 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 wait, right? And that's why I have fallen in love with GME Compass, because this is a resource for program and coordinators and managers to be able to listen to how others did what they're currently doing now, to be able to learn, like what I said, no, no, not everything needs to be done now. Just because program director comes through the door and is all exasperated, and calm them down and say, okay, how urgent is it? And then
Yes,
go, right? How many
100%.
times did the program director come in flipping out? And no, wait, take a breath, deep breath, and sit
Yes.
down.
I've said so many times to my mentees, to people
Mhm.
who have reported to me, to program directors, trainees, like, in a situation that comes to my desk, not if it's a PD or train,
Right,
maybe
right.
not in all
Mhm.
of it, but in the situation that comes to my desk, nobody's dying,
Right.
nobody's bleeding, right?
Yeah.
So let's pause, take a breath, and let's just regroup our thoughts around that. And
Yes.
okay,
Mm.
now let's start to break it down and think about it. Because
Mhm.
I have had emergencies come across my desk that were urgent.
Mhm.
The vast majority, it's okay. It
Right.
might not be good, but it's okay. So let's
But
figure it out.
how did you figure that out? By asking the questions. It
Yep.
goes back to the previous question. Ask the right questions. You should always be asking questions. Is
Yep.
anybody bleeding? Is anyone bleeding out right now? Okay, we have time.
Yep. Yes. Yes. Right, and it's gonna be okay. Even if it's not
Mm-hmm.
gonna be good, it's going to be okay. We're gonna
Yes.
figure it out.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
what things accreditation-wise do you feel like live rent free in our head?
For me, it was everything was, will this pass a site visit? One thing that I would tell all new coordinators that were mentoring with me, take your requirements, print them out, or do whatever you want with them, but go by requirement and see how is it that your program is meeting that requirement. And you should have a response for every single one. Then come back and say, okay, how can we make this better? Okay. But that was always my question to myself. Do I have everything to pass a site visit? And when you get that notification, oh, site visit is coming, we all get that knot in the stomach. But after I've been doing this for 16 years, as the years went by, when I got the notification, because I had the checklist, I already had a mental note of everything that needed to be done. It wasn't so intimidating. The newer people might make it seem like it's very intimidating, but once you've been through it a couple of times, it's okay. But going
Yes.
along with that is that gap between what's happening in reality and is there documentation for it? Because a lot of citations happen because there's no documentation of how a requirement is being implemented,
Well,
right?
because anybody can tell a good story, right?
Yeah, and with the drama and everything, yes. But the
And
ACGME sitting there, that's wonderful. Where's the
yep,
documentation?
correct. How do you prove that? For me, I think the big and they complemented each other. They were two separate things, but
Hmm.
together is one was service over education.
Yes.
Right?
Oh,
Like,
that's
are
a big
we
one.
putting
Hmm.
education over service or are we putting
Hmm.
service over education? Every decision that we would make, conversations that we would have in PEC, coming from a community hospital, I felt like whenever we would make changes, especially when it was changes that were strongly suggested by the
Right.
department or the
Mhm.
institution or the
Mhm.
network or someone where a funding source might come from,
Mhm. Mhm.
is is are we doing this because we're making a decision about a service, or we're making a decision about an
Yes.
education
Mhm.
opportunity? That really lived right and free in my head. And then in tandem with that, in partnership with that, was, are we doing our trainees justice?
Yes.
You know,
Mhm.
like, because I would struggle with some of the decisions that we might make, maybe clinical competency committee, curriculum changes or decisions, whatever the motivation for that is in training exam, whatever the motivation is if we're being too harsh
Yes.
or if we're being too direct, are we being mindful of them as a human, as a
Mhm.
person, right?
Correct.
But if we're too gentle with them and mindful of them as a obviously human first, but like if we're too gentle because we're putting that emotion first, are we being fair and transparent? And how do you find that right spot in the middle where you're doing both things the right way? I felt like I always struggled with, it's like raising your kids, right?
Right.
I always feel like I'm either too hard on them or too soft on them, and I can't, but I'm either feeling guilty one way or the other. I felt that way about the trainees. Like those were the two things that I felt like always just kind of cycled in my brain.
Right. And it's always going to be different for everybody. For
Yes,
every program, it's always going
yes.
to be different, right? But it's always that middle ground, and it's always, I found in my experience, okay, what are the non-negotiables?
Yeah,
I can meet you in the middle, but there's certain non-negotiables that we just can't go over.
100%.
Right, right.
Absolutely.
And the last one that lives rent free in my head was always evaluations.
Yep.
I always looked at evaluations because how do we know if the program is going well? If the people participating in the program aren't giving us feedback. Yeah, the nurses will give us feedback. That's great. But no, and one thing that I would train faculty when I would train teaching faculty and core faculty is please don't write good resident. I want to know why is that resident good? Why do you think that resident good is good because the other faculty member might think they're just mediocre, right? So when coordinators are getting all the data together, it gives a good solid view of the program. But how can we get a good solid view of the program if no one's completing evaluations? You know?
Well, I've always said what would always be in the back of my mind, let's say we decide to put a resident on probation or on academic
Uh-huh.
board or
Uh-huh.
something to that extent, is what would live rent free in my head would be, would, if I found myself sitting in a chair in front of the resident appeals committee or a courtroom or HR,
Uh-huh. Right.
could I defend this?
Correct.
And I think most times the answer would be no,
Uh-huh.
right? Because
Uh-huh.
usually that feedback or those situations are because nobody wants to write it down. Like they
Right.
feel, right? Nobody
They
wants to
feel
write it down.
bad. I don't want to
Yes,
impact their training negatively. That's what you're
yes,
supposed to be doing,
right.
giving feedback to improve them.
Correct, correct, and that's what I would try to always look at it from that lens, and I would try to spin it from that lens of, like, we have to look at it from that perspective of, could we defend, if we're going to make an impactful decision like this, would we be able to defend why we made the decision we made,
Mhm.
and how did we get there? Absolutely, I think that this was a really great conversation, and I think that this is a conversation that we probably can keep having because it's such an important topic, and it's a topic that affects us in so many ways, and one, helping our fellow program coordinators understand that you're not alone, that you
Yes.
have a support system and you have a community and a collaborative space is really important. And I think, continuing to have these conversations, that it's normal, that this is a stressful job. It's normal, and that's okay. okay. And these feelings exist because we care so deeply about what we're doing. So,
Exactly.
thank you so much for joining us today, Cynthia. I can't tell you how honored and how thankful I am that you reached out to us and that I've gotten to know you. I really appreciate our discussions. I can't even put it into words. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Julie. It was great. It was a lot of fun. I look forward to continuing the conversation and
Yeah,
let's talk. I think that it's very important for the program coordinators and managers to really understand, like you said, that they are not alone, that there are other people that have gone way ahead of them and have endured and suffered through the things that they might be currently suffering through. However, being in GME is very rewarding. As it's very heartfelt, and I encourage everyone to continue to come back, continue to look at all the resources that GME Compass is going to put together in these podcasts and webinars to be able to really build that community that I wish I had when I started GME so long ago. Thank you
that's
so much, Julie.
That's exactly why we're doing it, for legacy and giving back. Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see everyone soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.